Hello again, everybody. Welcome to yet another edition of Journey Through Sports and Life here in the middle of the summer of 2024, talking baseball, talking football, and talking all kinds of sports. Of course, the Olympics underway in Paris, France, but right now we're going to be talking about football, and we're most excited about it. We say hello to Marnie and Marjorie, and I'm Scott. Hello, ladies. How are you today?
Good, very good, Scott. How are you doing? Hi,
Are you
Marjorie. Yeah,
enjoying
doing
the
great.
summer? Yeah, enjoying the summer months?
Absolutely, especially here in Texas, because right now the highs are only hitting up the upper 80s and what's usually the hottest month of the year. So, yeah, it's really a nice surprise.
Well, I tell you what, it's been crazy. There's no question about that. But we're going to have fun during the course of the program today because we are talking about the football season coming up. Cowboys reporting to a training camp in Oxnard, California. But more importantly, we're talking about a guy that was a former Dallas Cowboy back in the 90s. And we're talking about a gentleman by the name of Michael Kiselak, who lives in Dallas now, remained in Dallas, but signed by the Kansas City Chiefs back in 1990. That's when it all began in the National Football League for Michael. Also played for the Oilers, the Giants, and your Dallas Cowboys. He also played up in the Canadian Football League, and I remember learning about this years ago, but he played with some guy by the name of Doug Flutie.
Yeah.
Remember him, of course, that's right. And they won a couple of Grey Cups. That's the same as the Super Bowl, but in the Canadian Football League, the Grey Cup, and he was with the Toronto Argonauts. So that's how it all started. But I've seen Michael since that time when he retired from playing professional football and what have you. I remember all the wonderful things that he's done philanthropically in our great state of Texas. So we'll talk about some of those things today too. So he and his wife have been very, very generous and very go-giving, as they say. So thank you, thank you, thank you, and welcome, Michael. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me, Marjorie and Marnie. I appreciate the opportunity. Scott, always good to hear from you, and love to talk. You know me, I love to talk, so I'm good.
Oh, good, because we love to ask questions.
Well, let me tell you, ladies, he does like to talk, but it's all good stuff. He's one.
Exactly. I got my coffee ready for him.
Oh, good. I have mine too. Here we go. Same here.
Well, I tell you what, why don't you talk just about the early days, just to get it going, Michael? When you started your career, where you had the desire to someday hopefully play professional football, whether it was in Canada, whether it was in the National Football League, no matter where it was, what you were doing, just where all that came from.
Well, honestly, as an American boy, I didn't even know what the Canadian Football League was back then, or any other lesser league, I call them. NFL was all the whole thing is what I loved. Did I know as a young kid that I was going to be making the NFL? No, it was just a desire, as a want. It's something that was out there that you thought you might be able to grasp someday because we're invincible. As young children, as young adults with young minds, like I think I still have. I believe I'm invincible. I can do whatever I put my mind to, and I've been very blessed with opportunities. And when I was in a place called, because we moved out of the city from New York originally, outside the Bronx, place called now Sleepy Hollow. We moved upstate to Pine Bush, New York, a small town. And, some guy was watching some other guy that I was playing against to get a scholarship to Syracuse. And he saw me. That's how I was put on the map. And I guess I did well enough. They recruited me there. They recruited me at Maryland. They recruited me at West Point. Yes, I was given an appointment to West Point without filling out any paperwork, because there was no way I was going to West Point. When I looked out the window and I saw those guys in the rain standing in the middle, I go, "Hey, what are those guys? They're plebes." I go, "What's that mean?" First year guys. I said, "Well, will I have to do that?" And they were like, "Well, just the first year, but when you get with us, you'll be good." I'm like, "Yeah, that ain't happening." I was not military material, thank God. I ended up going to Maryland because it was snowing up in New York. 2 feet of snow or whatever. Drove down to Maryland for this visit, and it was like a spring day. I was like, "Oh my gosh, it's beautiful," and that's what got me hooked to the South, and never went north again. And love going home. Love going home to visit people, family, and friends. New York's a great place to be from, is what I tell them. But went to Maryland, played at Maryland. Played with some great athletes out of Maryland, and then I started my career in '90 with the Chiefs. It was that's the career of what I call an athletic mercenary. You write a check, I'll go play. I don't care what league, as long as I keep playing. I kept playing, and I was with the Chiefs, the Oilers, the Giants, and the Cowboys. I played in the CFL with the teams that were in the U.S. as well as the teams that, when they all pulled back up to Canada. I ended up going to the Argonauts, and with Doug Flutie, won 2 Grey Cups, won 2 Outstanding Lineman League Awards, which was, there was nothing else for me to win up there then. So then I got a call from 2 teams, the Cowboys and Seattle. They offered me contracts. I really felt the Lord put the hand on the Cowboys, and that's where I went, and ended up starting there at center, and had a great, to me, a short career because I blew my knee out the next year. Moved to right guard. I played center, and then I moved to right guard because Stepnoski came back. I went to right guard, and ended up blowing my knee out early on in the season, and that kind of put me in I'll call it just a tailspin, right? And ended up, trying to come out and played in the XFL, actually in San Francisco, the original one with McMahon and them, and went out to San Francisco with the San Francisco Demons, and played out there. It was actually fun. All those lesser leagues, I call them, the lower leagues, I guess you call the UFL now, which is the USFL and the XFL that merged together. I call them the lesser leagues because it's not the NFL. Everyone wants to play in the NFL. And, it's nothing better than, I'll go back and I'll watch some quick film on getting to the NFL. And it's such a huge experience, not just for myself, but to share with my family and friends and people that watched me in my whole career. And even yourselves, especially you, Scott, when you were reporting when I was playing. So it was a good experience for me, and the great Pat Summerall and became a good friend of mine here too. And just being able to hear that iconic voices that you hear from in sports, be able to be, hey, wait, they said my name, that's my picture, my fat face in the frame.
That's great. That's great stuff. Well, that gives you an idea of what he did in pro football and his incredible career, from Canada all the way down to the United States and Grey Cups and what we have. How about Marnie? Who wants to jump in first?
Yeah. So you've played a lot of places, as you just said. Would you say you ever had a wow moment, at any of one of those stops where, like you said, now Pat Summerall says your name or something like that? What about a wow moment?
Okay, I'll give you a wow moment is my favorite one. My first start in the NFL. I got a prior to the game, the Clay Shiver hurt his foot. I ended up going. I became the starter in that game, and so I was like, great. So okay, it's Pat Summerall and John Madden are doing it. So of course, what do they do before the game? They come over to the locker room, they sit you down, and I'm in this small offensive meeting room with just those two, just asking me all these questions about family. They wanted to get some background on me, so I asked, I was like, wow, that's so cool. Then all of a sudden the game comes as we're going against Arizona back in '98. And of course, what's his name? Jake Plummer, the
Arizona State quarterback. Sure.
Jake the Snake, right? And
right.
and stuff like that. So it was like, oh my gosh, and I'm out there. I'm like, all of a sudden I get in the huddle. Well, first of all, we're walking out. And Nate Newton says to me, he's like, hey, man, he goes, don't worry about the crowd. He goes, they'll be all blue by the time halftime comes. And we're kicking their butt. And I go, because it was all red. It was like, he goes, because at first he said it's going to be half blue, half red. I'm like, right, sure. He goes, no, seriously, I'm telling you. He goes, watch. And so I end up there. It literally was mostly all red. I go, Nate, what's up? You said it was freaking going to be half and half. This is a hostile territory, right? And he's like, watch. He goes, watch at halftime. And I was like, all right, whatever. Seriously, we were winning at halftime. I don't know what it was, a big score. And it was, I would say 3/4 blue at that time. He goes, they're reversibles. I'm telling you, they're reversibles. They love us out there, but except Jake the Snake was so good. They were trying to root for their team. It was great. Well, anyway, I'm in the huddle. And of course, I love watching on TV, hearing my voice. I mean, hearing the voices of those iconic newscasters or sportscasters say your name and talk about the game that I was in. Except once in a while when they say Kiselak, blew the snap on that or something like that, but it was still kind of cool too to hear their voice. But then I go in and I look in the huddle before the first play, get out there, I'm looking, I go, man, there's Nate Newton. I mean, there's Troy Aikman, there's Michael Irvin, there's, Dion at times, because he played some offense, and then Michael, like I said, Emmitt Smith, all these guys, Larry Allen playing next to me, the Black Rhino, I call them, right? And all these other guys, I'm saying iconic. This is the Cowboys, right? And I go, shoot, I'm one of the boys. I'm one of the boys. And then I clap my hand, turn around, and have to play against a 6'5", 350-pound player for the next 60 minutes. I'm like, I'm one of the boys. Let's go. So it was a great, that was my wow moment of entry into the NFL where I got to start. And I was playing a lot, backing up people and jumping in, but being able to start and be the player was a huge thing for me. And for any young kid that ever wants to be there, that's the moment that they think of when they're a kid in high school or in Pop Warner, that they want to someday sit there and look at the people in their huddle. And how many Hall of Famers are there? I mean, 4.
Yeah, right. At least.
In that huddle right there. And that's right now anyway, right?
Mhm.
So it was unbelievable,
You talk about Pat Summerall, Michael. I lived down the street from Pat, and for many years, and so one day I had to go over there and do something. Pat said, "Hey, can you come over and bring?" So I took something over. I forget what it was, but at any rate, I guess to sign some things for charity or something. So I took my son, who was just a little guy at that time, and he had heard Pat Summerall and John Madden on the TV for years. Well, we walked in, and my son, just for 30 minutes, sat there, and I a couple of times he said, "Hey, buddy, close your mouth, He's like this. He just, because he heard this guy's voice. He'd never met him before, but he'd heard this guy's voice every Sunday afternoon forever. And
I used to hate calling him, because I'd call him up if I needed a question. I didn't want him to answer. I wanted to hear his voicemail, because it was like, "You've reached the Summerall." That voice of his was just killing me. But let me tell you real quick.
One of the really nice guys, too. One of the nicest guys you'd ever want to meet.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I go to his house real quick. I go to his house. There's one thing. He had a box with, it was a table, glass top, and it was filled with all, guys, how you guys get the credentials for every game you've ever done.
Right.
He's like, "If you want anything in this place, would you?" I said, "I want that, because that's history. That was history of all the whether it be golf, football, baseball, whatever it was, Olympics, whatever he did, those were the credentials in there, at least the top ones."
I wish I had done that. The minute an event, I covered Super Bowls, Wimbledon, Cowboys playing in Europe, all kinds of big events. And when the event was over, the credential went right into the trash can. And that was it. I kept nothing. And then I go to Scott's house and I see all of his and what you see at Pat Summerall's. And I just threw them all away. Mm-hmm.
Do you see what that is?
Yeah.
Wait a minute. I got to get it. See what that says?
Yep, Lake Placid. Mm-hmm.
It's a Lake Placid. That was the year of they came out with the movie Miracle on Ice when the Americans beat the Russians 4-3. I was just a punk kid, just gotten out of college, and I just started my career in television, and I was at that game. And my parents, speaking of Toronto, my dad was born in Nova Scotia, so they were up in Toronto with my uncle and my grandnephew, watching the game, and all of a sudden I popped up after the game. They selected 3 or 4 reporters in the game, and I got to ask Mike Ruzioni, who got the winning goal, a question. Well, this was going all over the world, television here in the U.S., but it was going all over the world. And all of a sudden I pop up and they're in Toronto and I'm in Lake Placid, New York. And I'll never forget, to this day, my parents talk about how I popped out. And then, of course, they came up with that movie. But that was one of my highlights, because it was one of the first things that I ever covered. But being there at the Olympics in 1980 was really something. But to see that game. But so, yeah, I saved all my stuff. My wife said, "When are you going to throw all this stuff out?" I said, "I'm not going to throw it out. Exactly. It's a part of my history,
It's going to be
give it to the kids. My son likes all that stuff." I hear you. You what?
It's going to be in the Scott Murray.
What's that, Michael?
I said it's going to be in the Scott Murray Sports History Museum.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
If anybody cares about that, but my son wants all this stuff, so that's good. So go ahead, Marnie, jump in.
Well, all right, so Michael, you played in all these different places. Tell me about the fans. Was the fan experience different? Were fans different? Or are they all just the same? I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah, that's a good question. The fans, to me, are all incredible. I love fans that love their teams, and they will just get behind you. Whether we were playing in small crowds with, one of the smaller teams that I played on, like I played with Jason Garrett in the World League of American Football down in San Antonio.
Right.
I stepped off the bus and I learned how to say San Antonio. You have to say it right. Say San Antonio. And I had this one guy looked at me in the store and he goes, "Hey, I know you." I'm like, "Okay." He goes, "Yeah, you're one of the San Antonios." I go, "Oh, that's how you say it." All right. Because literally, I'm going to tell you a quick story about myself. You guys are going to laugh at this. I promise you, you're going to get a good, you'll get some good bites out of this one. I'm sitting there. I like telling on myself my ignorance too, because the difference between a Guido from New York and a redneck from Texas is accent. That's it. They're both ignorant, and so I'm sitting there, and I was in the World League. I got cut from the Chiefs, and I didn't know what I was going to do. I needed to play, so I find out about this World League of American Football. So I go right down. It's freezing up in New York, so I traveled down to Florida because Orlando was where they're going to have a combine, and they were going to start this new league, and I'm going to go down there. And so I went there a month or so earlier so I could train. Really, I just wanted to get out of the snow. I wanted to get in, in the warm weather. And back then, I had the Mr. T starter kit gold around my neck. I had the wife beater T-shirt and the Mark Gastineau haircut, right? So that was me. All right.
Well, it was the 90s too.
Definitely the 90s. Absolutely. That was exactly the beginning of the 90s, right? And so I had 10 years more of that, right? So I'm sitting there and all of a sudden I called my mom, and I had a heavier accent back then because I said, and my mom's St. Joan, there's 6 kids in our family, 36 cousins total, and so it was a very, good Catholic family, right? And so we're all from the Northeast. And I call my mom when I got picked up from San Antonio. I go, "Hey, Ma, guess what?" She's like, "What?" I go, "I'm moving to California." And she goes, "Really? Where?" I go, "San Antonio." And she goes, "You idiot, you're going to Texas." I go, "Hell, I guess I'm going to be a cowboy." Right. And I go, little did I know, but it was like that. I just tell people all the time, it's like, I thought Santa Barbara, San Francisco, it had to be I didn't know where San Antonio was. Right. And I knew where Dallas was and knew where Houston was. Never heard of San Antonio. I don't know. It just, ignorance is bliss in my family, in my brain anyway. And so I ended up going to San Antonio and learning what San Antonio is. And I tell people all the time, if you don't want to go to Mexico, just go to San Antonio. You can drink the water. So you're good. But I lived there for a while, enjoyed it, got to play with Jason Garrett and a bunch of, actually I played with John, Jason, and Judd, all 3 of the Garretts I played with. And his dad's the one who got me up to the Cowboys. Mr. Garrett was an incredible scout for the Cowboys for many years.
Right. I didn't realize that he's the guy that got you up there.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Interesting.
Yeah, that's funny. So building on the fans, how about how did the fans react to Doug Flutie? He was, you played with Troy Aikman. You mentioned a lot of people, but Flutie was kind of an interesting phenomenon at the time. He was doing the Flutie Flakes. Ever since that touchdown that he threw against Miami when he was at Boston College, he just kind of created a brand for himself at the time. So what were the fans like? How was that experience?
You're showing your age, Marjorie. That's 40 years ago this season.
I read history books. No,
exactly. She's a historian, and she even, when we went back to the microfiche, she saw some pictures of you too there. So, but no, I had a guy tell me that one time. He's like, "Hey, listen." He goes, "Hey, listen, I got some pictures of you." I go, "No, you don't." I said, "I got all the pictures. There was none left." He goes, "No, seriously, I bought a box of microfiche." He said that. And
wow,
I go,
that's
"Oh my
quite
gosh, I'm old." I realize how old I am. But okay, back to your question. I'm sorry, and the fans too as well, all together.
That's funny though. Mm-hmm.
Doug, I got to play with Hostetler and Sims. I got to play with with Warren Moon and Cody Carlson, Jason Garrett and Troy Aikman and several other smaller guys that were in and out as well, and Steve DeBerg in Kansas City. It's just some of those, and of course Flutie. And he had, I think there was on our roster was Flutie. Who was the I can't remember his name. he was a quarterback. I think he was a coach at I can't remember his name anyway. But there was like two. It was Andre Ware, Flutie, and Casey Weldon from Florida State. Were our three quarterbacks in Toronto at one point, and it was just crazy.
Really?
Yep. And of course, you have two Heisman Trophy winners well, I think he was in the top three anyway, Casey Weldon. And so you had some serious talent up there. That's, of course, one of the reasons probably why we won, 2 in a row. But Flutie was one of those guys who had a chip on his shoulder back then because he didn't make the flakes yet. He didn't make the NFL where he made his big stand yet. But Flutie was one of those guys who, he was about the size of half a stick of chewing gum, and he had to run around the shower to get wet. He was so tiny, right? But he was one of those guys who you really just wanted to play with, because he would, by the third and fourth quarter, he would see what they've done and how people reacted to certain plays all the time, that he would sit there and all of a sudden his, Sandlot football came up, and he's like, "Hey guys, remember this play? Yeah. Okay. You run that route. I want you to run this. You do this." And I'm like, Flutie, I'm like, "Doug, which, what protection you want? 70 protection," or whatever he would call out. And we're like, "Okay." And I promise you, so many of the times, probably 70% of the time, it'd be like a huge play or a touchdown or something like that, because he would play that game in his brain, and he would, like a chess player, knew how they were reacting to certain movements, and he would see that. It was incredible to see the minds play. The fans loved him. Quick story: we had the Grey Cup one time. And, people always see the Grey Cup, that we used to take them out to bars and stuff. And we take the Grey Cup. It's kind of like the Stanley Cup as well.
Right.
But we take the Grey Cup out to this bar. And these guys all come out from this business building into this bar that we're at. And they're wanting a picture with the Grey Cup. Well, Doug's over there holding the cup. He's like figuring they wanted him in the picture and stuff. Like, they were pushing him away. Like, we just want the cup, And Doug's, feelings got hurt. He's a little soft at times. He gets a little, thin-skinned. But we were laughing about that's a joke in itself. I actually just saw
Get out
Doug.
of the picture.
Exactly. I just saw Doug just recently, end of last year, December. I was down in Florida, and he lives in Melbourne. And he pulls up. I go to meet him for lunch, and he pulls up in a freaking 1970 something Batmobile, literally the original style Batmobile. I go, "What's it?" He goes, "That's my everyday." He goes, "I love it." I'm like, "Seriously?" He goes, "Yeah, I'm a 10-year-old, 6-year-old." So I'm like, whatever. But
That's funny.
all those guys.
How did he make it work? I mean, here on the line, you guys, he could barely see. How can he see over you? How did you have to play that might have been different had he been 6'4"?
Well, I guess we played lower. No, I'm joking. But we didn't play lower. We played the way we had to play. He always said, he goes, "I don't need to see over people. I see in lanes. I know where routes are supposed to end up on the field. So I would throw to lanes and know that my wide receiver, whoever it is supposed to be there." And so that was one thing that he would always say. And the guy was, as you know, he ran an awful lot, and he was very slippery, and he never really got hit because he knew how to drop. Like some of these really good, like Rocket Ishmael, who we played with he was up in Canada as well, but he also played with the Cowboys. He was he's a small guy, but they knew when two guys were coming. They just knew how to just almost play dead and drop to the ground and not get hit. So those guys got hit. Whew, it was not good, because there's some big boys out there as linebackers hitting them. So
They probably ought to teach that technique to a lot of people that aren't as small as they are. Be nice to keep a healthy team together.
Oh, that's true. These days, though, nobody gets hurt because they don't hit in practice. So that's a whole nother story.
Do me a favor. We can talk a little football a little later in the program, but in the meantime, let's talk about some of the stuff that you and your wife, it's Kim, isn't it? It's around the block in the what is it? I'm trying to think of.
Well, we have several.
What is it? Kids Matter International.
Kids Matter International. Actually, you actually hosted that before,
right? That's what I mean. I just I was studying to be a pediatrician, so before I get into broadcasting, so anything that has to do with kids, I'm there. And you're so involved with young kids. You're with the Around the Block organization and kids International. It's amazing. Tell us about both those organizations and what you've done over the years.
Actually, there's multiple organizations, and I'm going to lead into some of the newer ones that I'm involved with too. Kids Matter International back in in 2006, formed, and they wanted me on their board, and it was actually called something different. I can't remember what it was, but they wanted me on their board, and I was like, well, here's what I'm doing. I'm working at this one. I was on it was called Clothe the Child at the time. And we were clothing kids since 1998. We take them to Kohl's department store, give them $100, and we walk around and shop with them. And we did, hundreds, 500 roughly every year, at this small church. And then what happened was we ended up taking that over a couple of years later. But I said, if you guys will do this, if you guys will come, I had to raise like $5,000 that one night, and I got them to sponsor the 5,000 Kids Matter. And I said, but listen, I don't want just your money. I want your time. Come out and shop with the kids. So I got them to shop with the kids, and they just fell in love with it. We love this. So the next 2 years, we went and gave about $50,000 each time to get these kids clothed. And then we took it over on the third year, whatever, we took it over, and we wanted to do it, and we wanted to help them expand it. Instead of just being one church, it's open to all churches and all people in the areas to do that. So we do now, I think they're doing a couple thousand kids a year, where they take them to Kohl's, and they've been doing it ever since. And I was on that board for many, many years. I've since stepped down, got involved because I friends with, remember a bunch of guys from South Lake, Alton Wells was a motorcycle cop, and now he's retired, but he started an organization called Spokes for Hope, where we would buy bicycles. And we would buy bicycles and give them to the police officers, and the police officers would give them to the kids that need. And we give, even now, we give hundreds of thousands. I think hundreds, maybe 1,000 bikes a year out there. Maybe a little bit more sometimes, depending on the year. But we have Keller Williams sponsors us in a big golf tournament every year. We do a motorcycle, more of a skills weekend with the police officers that come from all over the country, and mainly the state, of course, and the local states. But they sometimes we'll have 100, 102 riders out there, doing skills drills to increase. They get continuing education or continuing training, whatever they need. But they also do it for prizes and stuff like that, and we give bikes away there as well. But the best is when we went down to South Dallas. Chief Garcia and 3 or 4 of his deputies were there, and 50 other police officers. And we're at this one place, and that we had like 50 bikes or 50, 60 bikes to give away. And they brought all a bunch of their horses and their tactical team and stuff like that to let the kids see it. And they gave bikes away to the kids in South Dallas, very, I'll say an area in need, we'll call it, right? And it was just such a blessing. And then I remember one police officer saying, "Hey, could you get me a couple bikes? I just had a major incident with a mom and her estranged husband that was done to her in front of the 2 kids, and it was very devastating." And I said, you just tell me the size of the kids, and I'll figure out what size bikes we can get. I'll get them to you tomorrow. I'll bring them to you. I don't need to see the kids. I don't need to know their names, nothing. I want to give them to you because I like it, because the police officers get to blur that blue line. You know what I mean? Because a lot of times when the police officers knock on your door, they're not there to give you a bike. You know what I mean? And so it's been really helpful. I'm involved in a lot of Mike Renfro has a charity called I think it's called something Catch an Angel or something. Right. Be an Angel. Yeah. And I'm doing something this Sunday out in Fort Worth. I'm going to be doing something out there, and then I just recently accepted a board position on a group. It's called Anxiety Solutions of America, and it's down in Granbury. The guy has a ranch, and he wants to make it a venue to help with veterans that are, and first responders that have PTSD and things like that, to help them out. Because I know as a football player, the brain injuries and things like that I can understand exactly where they're coming from. I can understand some of the business things that I went through, caused me some major stress in my life. But it's just on how you can just overcome and surround yourself with the right people. If you surround yourself with the right people, you can get through just about anything in life. And if you have the right people that help you, direct you, and don't use you and abuse you, it's a big change. And in football, I always believe coaches were someone that sees something in you that you don't see, push you beyond where you can go to take you to places you've never been. Unfortunately, when I stepped into the business world, I thought everyone was like, coach, win and lose together, right? Well, I ended up going through some serious business altercations, I'll call them, and but because of the people I surrounded myself with, and the faith that I have, as well as the never quit attitude, and keep pushing through everything. Got through an awful lot of stuff, and was very blessed. I wouldn't wish it upon anyone, even my worst enemy, some of the things I went through in this world. But I'm glad I went through, because I saw how strong my faith is and how strong of a person I am to be able to get through, and not to step on people on your way back up, but to bring people up with you as a team, because I'm a team guy. At center, you're basically a team within a team on the offensive line. So you truly believe in teamwork, because one,
it's what it's all about. There's no
line and you're done, right?
So,
it really is. Really is.
I'm sure that was a very difficult time, what you're talking about. Was that part of what brought you to what you're doing now, so many charitable works? Or how did you decide to get so involved in so many different ways that really serve the community?
No, I appreciate that question. And you know what? I always felt that, given the platform as a professional athlete, you're not obligated, but you are, I think you have a responsibility to the community you serve, right? Because these people love you. These people are buying tickets and stuff like that. And whether I think some of them are crazy, because I legitimately still do think some of these people are crazy, but I love them, that they have so much passion. And I appreciate fans incredibly. I don't care what sport. I enjoy watching sports. I enjoy watching athletes perform. And I enjoy watching the crowd who love the athletes perform. I mean, some of these soccer games are incredible. These fans are crazy from these different parts of the world, and it's just I just have an appreciation for people who have so much passion for things like that. I did that right away. Right from the start. I started with reaching out and helping people. The reason I got involved in so many of the charities is two reasons. Was A, I've always been like that. And two, it's amazing the people you get to meet when you work in the philanthropic arenas. You get to meet so many good people that help you increase your businesses, increase your network, increase your ability to reach out to people. Like I always tell people, it's not who you know, it's who you call. It's who picks up when you call. Like yesterday when I saw Scott Murray calling me, and I was like, Scott, what's up? And he's like, would you do this? Of course I will, because, it gives me an opportunity to share my insight on life and my views on how I think people should be. And it's not what you do. I always tell people, I don't care about what you say. I want to see what you do, so let my actions speak so loud you don't need to hear my words.
Yeah. It's like what I said at the beginning, Marnie, or Marjorie, I said, football player, National Football League, the end of the conversation, but just a great guy. And really, Michael, you talk about some of the things that I've helped you with. I'd be there every day for you. I mean, because you're so committed to making, as I say, I'm writing my third book now, and it's all about rhyme has reason, just different things that we all come together. But the point is, you can be a difference maker in this world. Live your life as a go-getter, share your life as a go-giver. You lived your life as a go-getter with the Cowboys and with the playing pro football, and now you're living your life. You're sharing your life as a go-giver, and that's what it's all about. And you talk about the charities. What about your Club 63 Solutions too?
That's a organization that I help manage.
Right.
Lots of and that is a conglomerate of. It's an entrepreneurial type thing. Consulting. We do merchant processing for a lot of international companies. We've telcos and things like that. Local small businesses as well. There's so much technology out there. It's all relationship business because anyone can cut rates. Anyone can cut rates. So people like to do business with people they like. So I'm a belly to belly handshake, press the flesh type guy. And I enjoy working with people like that. And and helping other athletes too with their what I call their relational assets, because a lot of these guys are hurting. They don't have any money left or whatever. And I was like, well, who do you know? Help me, send it to me and I'll work it out and I'll pay you a commission. And so that's what we've been doing. And so it's been kind of an outreach as well as not just a business. To me, everything's a ministry that I do, whether I'm helping someone save money in their store, helping someone get, use their relational assets to help them bless their family so they can have income, or whether it's, we're also building ultimately we'll be building a huge greenhouse, growing lettuce and selling it internationally, or actually I shouldn't say internationally, but because mostly locally, and then internationally we have some interest in, for people to have this humongous, it's literally can't really talk too much about it until it gets funded, but we're putting a lot of technology together. And it's going to be a high-tech greenhouse, and we're in a process of putting that all together, and been working on that for a few years because it is a very large number, and we've got 2 through 12 funded. Just number 1 is the hard one. Once you get number 1 and prove your concept, then it goes from there.
That's a great point.
We're constantly always looking at opportunities to be able to open up doors because of our network that we have internationally and nationally, and that the outreach that we have through the philanthropic type efforts that we have, as well as there's so many teams that I played for. I just have people in so many different cities that are friends that I've stayed in touch with that I can, we've been able to open up the doors. My brother told me a long time ago, collect cards, but not football cards, collect business cards and build relationships while you're still playing, because people want to know you then. And what's nice about playing with the Cowboys is it's been 20 some odd years since I played, and people still recognize me as a Dallas Cowboy. It is a huge platform, a huge responsibility, and I think it's been a blessing for me to be able to stay in this area because of that.
Well, and you're spot on. There's no question about that. But the best part about it is the fact that you're aware of that, and that you've taken, I hate to say taken advantage of it, but you've in a positive, productive way to help others. And that's what it's all about. And whether it's Kids Matter International or whether it's Around the Block, any of the organizations that you work for boys and girls that need a helping hand, making a difference in the life of a child, it's as good as it gets. And Marnie, you ought to tell Michael about your books, for Pete's sake. Maybe there's some books that you could throw his way.
Definitely, we will have a lot to talk about. I've been writing a series of kids' books called Football Freddy and Fumble the Dog Game Day in the USA. And each book takes you on a tour through a different NFL city. And of course, we have the Football Freddy and Fumble the Dog Game Day in Dallas Fort Worth book. So would love to, and a couple other cities that you played for too. But like you said, giving a bike to a child, the same thing. I work with local law enforcement in the Carolinas and also in the Dallas Fort Worth area, and have given lots of books to police officers and law enforcement, because they realize that a book during some sort of situation involving a family is a really good tool for them to have, as it is a little bit different than a stuffed animal, although we love stuffed animals, but that kids, reading is such an important part of de-escalation. And like you said, also, sports really are the universal language. So I love what you're doing. And, the same way that you had an amazing moment on the field, have there been, I'm sure there have been many, but 1 or 2 amazing moments off the field where you were like, you know what, we're actually really doing things that make a difference?
Yeah, there's way too many to describe the times where you see these kids when they're getting, for the first time, they're getting brand new clothes, and you're walking the family through of 4 or 5 kids. But there's also times too where you get so mad, because I remember one time I called up and this family of 4 or 5 kids didn't show up, and so we call the parents up, and you hear the guy on the phone. He's just sitting there, yeah, man, you're gonna have to catch me next time, man. I'm just too tired today, and I was, you can hear that he's all drunk or whatever, and I'm like, I get so mad for the kids. We can't go get them, of course, but you get so mad for the kids, because that's a lot of money for these kids to get brand new clothes, and now you're just because you're tripping or whatever you're doing, having your time, it just drives me nuts. So I am a big proponent to help these kids out as best as possible, and whether it be bikes, whether it be my whole thing is kids. They don't have a choice. So, if we can help them is one thing. And the other thing is vets and And those are my two areas: vets and first responders. The kids in those two areas are huge for me because hey, they made a choice to help serve us, and these people don't have a choice, so they can't help what they were born into. But if we can help them in any way, and then help these people continue to help those others, those are the two areas I really focus in on. I support and help a lot of other guys who have their charities, whether it be for Alzheimer's or whatever else it is. I go help them, but the good thing is that's what's nice about the fraternity of professional athletes. We all help each other in different times when we come out, whether it's a golf tournament, a bowling tournament, or Top Golf or whatever, or it's just doing something like this. When Scott calls me up, of course I'll help. If I got a story to tell, I mean, I got a million of them, but give me a couple shots of tequila and even more comes out. So.
No, you're spot on now. There's no question about that. They're spot on, and it really it's amazing how many people you talk about the military or children. I mean, they have no choice, for
Right.
Pete's sake. These poor kids, and oh boy, I can so identify with you because I've seen the same scenario take place over and over and over and over. Marjorie, jump on board.
Okay, so you mentioned that it's kind of, you've got all these networks because of having lived and played football in so many different cities. Now in retirement, you can see that that's really a benefit that you weren't in one location maybe for 20 years, but how difficult was it at the time? How hard was it to go year after year after year and maybe not always know if you're still going to be playing or if you're going to play somewhere else?
Right. Well, I mean, it was 11 years of running scared, I mean, I loved what I did. The beginning part was trying to keep a job. And then once you got, to the place where you got a job and you're working, you want to say, okay, what's next? Or even with me, I was always constantly trying to strive to get to the NFL. So the beginning part wasn't that difficult for me because I just kept wanting to keep playing and keep playing and keep playing. So I had more film, and then I'd play for a little while, get cut, and then I'd go play over here. Then wherever it was, I was constantly all over the place. But when I got to the Cowboys and was able to settle in a little bit, it was nice. It was the ability to be able to do that. But then just when you think you're comfortable, you blow your knee out, and you're like, wow, devastating. Career is over. Wife at the time was pregnant. My daughter now is married. She's the one. She was pregnant when I blew my knee out. She's married last November. I walked her down the aisle. So it was a huge thing for me. And I remember walking her down the aisle, and I had a good time that night. It was such a joy to see her go through so many levels of life. Having a child, being a father. That's the one thing too that I try to push to the guys that are around me is being a good dad. I remember when I first found out it was a girl, I kind of freaked out. I called John Weber, who was our chaplain for the Cowboys. Had a couple of choice words saying, I'm going to blank and kill somebody someday. I said, John, I'm going to blank and kill someone. He looks at me like, what? I go, someday. I said, it's a girl. It's a freaking girl, John. And I said, I don't want a knucklehead like me, ended up, so I prayed over her every night before she was born. And she came out and he told me these three words: daddy, daughter, date. So anybody out there is listening to this podcast, I promise you, if you have a daughter, you're kind of freaked out about it. I'm telling you right now, John Weber told this to me and it worked for me. Daddy, daughter, date. You take them on a date, you take them, from her painting your nails to teacups to, playing with the teddy bears and stuff like that to shooting guns, and having, even now she'll call up, she goes, hey, Dad, I think it's time for a daddy, daughter date. We got to go. So we'll meet at a happy hour, have a couple of drinks and kind of talk and solve the world's problems, and it's just, he said this. He goes, when the first boy comes up and says "I love you" to her, she's gonna say, "No, that's not love. My daddy showed me what love is. That's just straight up the way he was. And that's just being horny or something, But I don't know if it's kid friendly, but whatever. And but it was true. And so literally, talk about answered prayers. She was dating this guy, only boyfriend she's ever had. Answered prayer for me right there. South Lake kid. They went to the same high school together, and then he ended up going to Arkansas. He ended up going to the White Sox for about 2.5 years, and then he just kind of just said, you know what, I don't want to chase it anymore. He's got his master's in engineering. He got a really good job. She's got a really good job, and now they're buying a house. So I mean, up in Justin, building a house in Justin. So I was like, talk about, fairy tale ending. I mean, fairy tale story. It's unbelievable. And I get to live that through my daughter. And hopefully soon something else comes up. I told them, now you're married. It's time to procreate. It's go.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Let me jump in here and say something, though. That's a great story about your daughter, but go look in the mirror when you get home tonight. The guy looking back at you has a great deal to do with why your daughter's where she is today. So
well,
good
that's
for you.
One thing I can say I did right.
Yeah.
I don't know what I did, but I did it right.
Yeah. Well, we've got less than 5 minutes left. I just want to say that, Marjorie's written a book. You talk about the military that's being made into a movie. What's it called? When all the men are gone.
When the men were gone.
When the men were gone. It's about a woman back in the 40s, World War II. All the guys, the football coaches and everything, they got to go off to fight the war. And so a principal at the school, who's a woman, takes over the football team. They win the state championship. So great story, and it's a great movie coming up. You'll hear more about it. Marnie, we talk about all that Marnie's done, what she continues to do. Her grandfather was one of the founders of the Ronald McDonald House.
Oh,
so
awesome.
These two ladies have lots to go. And of course, all the philanthropic things that you and I have done together and continue to do over the years. So my question to you is, that's said and done on behalf of the four of us here, but more importantly, on behalf of you, Michael, and your family. In the last 4 minutes here we've got left, what is the message that you would like to share to the audience here today, to young people, to elderly people, to anybody out there, so that we can get this world back where it's the world that we grew up in? What's the message that you'd like to share with us all? Because you've been just great with all that you've shared with us today.
Well, I would say, first of all, don't quit. When life gives you some rough times, just realize that they're not rough times, they're lessons. And you're going to overcome them. However you're going to do it, you're going to overcome them. And then you're going to learn from them, learn from your mistakes, learn from other people's mistakes whenever you can. You're going to make your own mistakes. And it doesn't matter. Just keep moving forward, but don't step on people, lift people up. When you lift people up and when you surround yourself with wise counsel as opposed to, wise asses, you're going to be a much better person, and you're going to be able to continue to grow. And I tell people this: the biggest thing is show through your action, not your words, because so many people talk so much you can't hear their words because their actions speak loudly enough of who they aren't. Because people who talk a lot don't walk a lot. And I like to make sure that my actions speak so loud you don't need to hear my words. And that's what I tell people, that if they can have one thing that they're going to do in life, let your actions, whether you're a grandfather, a mom or dad, just a person out there doing good in the community, let your actions speak so loud that you don't need to say your words, because it just speaks for you. And if that can happen, then you've written a book. The Bible says you're a living epistle read by all. So what's your story tell? What's your story tell them?
Yeah. 2 minutes left. Your legacy. How you want people to say when somebody says, Michael Kiselak, what do you want them to remember about you? This generation, the next generation. A great guy who believed in what he said and walked what he said. That's I want, again, it goes back to the actions and the words. I want people to know me as it really isn't about me. It's about what the ripple effect around me. It'll speak for itself. It doesn't. I played offensive line. I didn't care. I didn't get unless I was holding somebody or throwing a flag at. I didn't care. I just want to score the touchdown. I don't need to catch the ball. I don't need to throw the ball. I don't need to run it in. I just want to help. That's my life. I was an offensive lineman. All right, ladies, 30 seconds each. What do you think?
Well,
Pretty good
I think that's a great analogy that you say there, because offensive line they're not looking for the glory, but they're doing the hard lifting. Mm-hmm. And that sounds like what you've made a life of.
Good point. Good point, Marjorie.
Well, I just love that you knew you had it, that you could make it happen. You just had to keep on going. So nothing really seemed to phase you. You're like, all right, I'm going to pivot and do this, and then I'm going to do that. And so that is just such an admirable quality. And I think that it's such a great quality to share with everybody, because a lot of people, they hit one wall and then they're like, all right, well, that's that. But you certainly have not done that at all. So bravo.
Well, people like yourself really helped.
Yeah, 30 seconds, Michael. Really what you want to do? What's left to be done? 30 seconds.
Oh, I have no idea. There's a whole bunch of stuff to be done. I'm just going to keep going. I'm going to keep going until, something pops up every day. I'm going to continue doing everything that I do. And when the Lord opens the door, I'm going to conquer it.
Well, let me say on behalf of everybody that's been listening to this for the last hour, on behalf of both Marnie and Marjorie, you were fun to watch as a football player, but more importantly, you're just most honored to be call you a friend and all you continue to do in our community to make a difference. And as we said, it doesn't make any difference what you do, but making a difference in the life of a child is as good as it gets. And you do that every single day. So thank you on behalf of everybody out there. You're a real difference maker, and we can't thank you enough.
I appreciate it. It's a pleasure.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So till next week, for Michael Kiselak, Marnie, and Marjorie, I'm Scott saying so long. Stay safe, and be well as we move forward with yet another edition of Journey Through Sports and Life.